So we work with reality to create positive results. I'm going to tell you folks 3 quick stories, and each of these stories have the same theme. And the theme is this: not all happy stories have happy beginnings. And not all happy stories will also have happy middles. But if we're willing to make some sacrifices along the way, we can truly create some positive experiences for ourselves. And I call these stories the 3 P's of positivity, because each of these stories has a theme, and each theme begins with the letter P. And to introduce this story, I'd like to invite all of you to close your eyes. And you're going to shoot into the future, 10 years from now. So you're imagining it's 10 years in the future, and it's morning. You're lying in bed, you open your eyes. Where are you? Are you at home? Are you in your own home? Are you in an apartment? Are you living in a car? Are you sleeping in a tent? Are you still in school? Are you sleeping at school? Where are you? Now it's morning, so it's time to go to work, or maybe it's time to go on your permanent vacation, whatever your life is 10 years from now. And imagine where you're going. Where are you going 10 years from now in the morning? Are you going to a job? What job is it? What city are you in? What country are you in? Where are you? And what are you going to do today? Now think about this. Now it's lunchtime. It's lunchtime, and you're going to go hang out with some friends, or maybe you're meeting up with some colleagues, or maybe you're meeting up with some prospects because you're on your own business, or you're having lunch meetings, or maybe you're just going to meditate in the mountains. Wherever you are, what are you doing around lunchtime? What are you doing with your free time? Now it's the end of the day, you're going back home, or you're going somewhere. Who are you going to be with? Who is in your life? What people do you choose to surround yourself with? You've had a full day. Now it's time to lay down, and just before you go to sleep, you're thinking about the day that you just had. You're thinking about all the things you've done, all the good that you've done, all the people that you've seen. And just before you doze off to sleep, you have this feeling of what it feels like to have done all the things that you've just done. Hold that feeling and take a big, deep breath in. Big breath out. Now you're back at Stonehill College at Rochadine Commons, and open your eyes. It's often said that if we don't know where we're going, then any path can get us there. If we don't know where we're going, then any path can get us there. So we have to know where we're going. If we have this idea of where we want to be 10 years from now, doing an exercise like this is going to help you decide. You don't have to know every single step along the way. All you need to know is what that next step is. And this is why this P of positivity is purpose. When I was a little boy growing up, my biggest, most wildest dream was to one day become a magician. So, which is often the case with a lot of kids. How many of you dabbled with magic as kids? Many of you. I have Esther in my class, and I know she has a YouTube channel. She's going to kill me for saying that. But that was my biggest, most wildest dream, was to one day become a magician. You know, oftentimes as kids, we're often told all the things we can't do. You can't do this, you can't do that, sit down, shut up, be quiet. Kids are supposed to be seen, not heard, because adults are mean. But with magic, even the impossible was become possible. So my parents were very supportive. My mom made a cape for me. My dad gave me a gentleman's top hat. I would go out in the yard, I would find sticks, run around the neighborhood yelling, "Abracadabra!" My neighbors thought I was nuts, which was probably true. But I had the last laugh. One day, the person that I was pretending to be became the person that I am. Which I wasn't thinking of it at that time, but now that I've had this opportunity to look back, we really have to be careful who we pretend to be, because if we do that enough, that's going to become who we are. If we spend enough time hanging out with the people who are like that, that's who we are going to become. So I'd like to encourage you with this P of positivity is to really think about what it is that you want to do. What's your definite major purpose? What is your big primary mission in life? Everyone has a mission statement. And if you don't know what it is, then you just haven't given enough thought yet, because everything we do and everything we say communicates something to the people around us. And we have the opportunity to be intentional about this, to produce positive results for everyone. One of the biggest complaints that people come to me after talks like this is they say, Jonas, because that's my name. They say, Jonas, I don't know what I want to do. And that answer is common, but it's also fine. We don't need to know what we're going to do with the rest of our lives. We just need to know what is next, because if we keep taking that next step, we're going to see the next step after that and the next step after that. And I promise you, you're going to be able to find your path along the way. But to get you started, in case you are a little anxious about this, which I know many people are, there's an author, his name is Eckhart Tolle, and he has this theory. It's called the modalities of awakened doing. Have you ever heard of this? Modalities of awakened doing. It's 3 simple things. Everything we do, no matter what it is, we have to do it in one of these 3 ways. Number 1 is excitement. Number 2 is enjoyment. Or if we can't do any of those, at least enjoyment. Oh, excuse me, at least acceptance. And it's quite simple. If we're doing what is burning with passion inside of us, of course we're going to be excited, right? Yeah, we're going to be excited. What's your name? Yeah, Bridget. Bridget, what are you excited about?
Girls' State.
That's the right answer. That's the right answer. High five. Bridget, you're absolutely right. We're excited about Girls' Day, right? Because this is an opportunity, just like anything else. We have the opportunity to use this for positive, use it for negative, or it's a completely blank slate. And it could be whatever we want it to be, right? But it really is what we make of it. So if we're living our passion here at Girls' State, then we're going to be excited about going to our meetings. We're going to be excited about the elections, excited about giving speeches, excited about singing the Girls' State song, right? What do you mean, no? But we are not always going to be excited. We're going to have days where things are not going our way and we're just running into too many roadblocks. But even when those things happen, knowing that we're on the right path and we're living our truth, we can still at least enjoy the ride. Even when we're not enthusiastic and excited, we can still at least enjoy our life knowing that I'm doing what I want to do. I chose this, right? And yet, there are even going to be days, even for Mr. Positivity or Mrs. Positivity, even the most happiest people are going to have days when they're just are exhausted or they're on the last thread and they don't know how they're going to get through the day. So at the very least, if we can't be enthusiastic, if we can't enjoy ourselves, this third part is important, and it's acceptance. There was a study done recently that showed that 50% of our lives is completely out of our control. Now it's our DNA, it's our biology, it's who our parents are. We can't control who our parents are. It's our grandparents, it's our great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents. We can't control those things. We can't control where we were born, right? So 50% of our lives is completely out of our control. So all we can do is accept that. Now, not everything in life is going to be so cut and dry, because the other 50% that's made up of our circumstances. It's where we choose to live when we get older. It's the job that we choose. It's the school that we choose to go to. It's the people we choose to hang out with. We have some influence over these things, right? But the other 40% is huge, because we have complete control over this. It's our choices. It is all about our choices. And we can choose to be frustrated or fascinated by this. So that's why the last step in the modalities of awakened doing is acceptance. So I'm going to encourage you, as I continue with the last 2 stories, to start really thinking about 10 years from now, where do you want to be? What are you doing? Who are you with? To introduce the next story, this one is all about perspective. I have another magic trick for you. Are you excited? Do we have any card players? Any card players here? War counts. It's America. It's America's favorite game. What's your name? Evelyn? Evelyn, where are you from?
I'm from Sandwich, Mass.
Sandwich. I like sandwiches. Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Now, Evelyn, we've never met before tonight, right? You look so happy about this, too. About being here, yeah. So Evelyn is going to help us out with a little card trick. You can stay where you are. I just want to make sure everyone can see what's going on. Evelyn is going to choose one of these cards. Wherever you say stop as I shuffle through the cards, that's going to become your card. Do these instructions make sense, Evelyn? See, she's doing good already. Evelyn, just say stop as I shuffle through. Are you happy here? You know what I like about you? You're happy.
I'm very happy.
Take a look at your card. Do not let me know what it is. No, that's okay. You can come right up. Don't tell me what it is. I'll show the people around you in case you forget. Remember your card? You're writing it down. Now, you're going to find out that this is a very disappointing card trick. But I'm doing this for a reason, because this really has an important lesson attached to it. So you had a free choice of any card, correct? You could have chosen any card. And yet, let me move my lemon out of the way. And yet, I have this giant-sized playing card. Everyone go, ooh. I use a giant-sized card because this is kind of a big deal. I told you the jokes are free. Thank you for clapping, Evelyn. Do you believe, Evelyn, that your card that you just picked a moment ago is on this card? A lot of no's. Leave it up to chance. Well, that's life, right? Just waking up in the morning, it's a big risk. Now remember, this story is all about perspective, right? So it seems unlikely that your card is going to be on here, but it is possible. It's possible, but unlikely. For the first time, what was your card? Yeah, you can say it. You had to look. Say it again so everyone can hear.
2 of hearts.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to turn over the card. I'm going to show everyone Evelyn's card. Everyone's going to burst out into a big round of applause. Evelyn, take a look. Your card. Do you see it? What's that?
Oh my God, it's the 2 of hearts.
It's the 2 of hearts.
It's right there. It's right there.
Give Evelyn a nice big hand. Now, what those of you in the back can't tell is all 52 cards are on this card. Meaning there was no possible way for this to fail unless you picked a joker, in which case I would have been that card then. Thank you so much, Evelyn. Let's give Evelyn a nice big hand. Thank you. I like to perform this trick, mostly because it's ridiculous, and I'm a ridiculous guy, but it also illustrates how taking a step back from a situation and seeing a difficult situation, how it can become a positive situation, how regardless of what happens, we're always going to be able to facilitate a positive result. Now, this is a simple example of this. How do we apply this to everyday life? Well, think about it this way. We're all coming from different places, right? And yet we're all gathered in the same room for the same purpose. And yet even though we're all gathered here for the same purpose, we're all experiencing something slightly different. And we can't help it. It's because of all the different perspectives that we're using to interpret all these events around us. If any of you wanted to change your experience, you could easily leave the room, but then the counselors would chase after you. Sometimes, what was that? Citations, that's right, citations. So sometimes we get into situations where it's not possible to leave the room in order to change that situation. So we get into circumstances that we just have to sit with what's going on and do the best with what's happening. And when that happens, we can still change our experiences. And this is really amazing because it seems like a magic trick, and probably if I heard this years ago, I would have thought, you're crazy, it's impossible, but I'm telling you it's true. You can change your experience by changing your perspective. I have 2 quotes for you that's related to this. One of them is ridiculous. It's from a comedian, Stephen Wright. And the other one is from the author Napoleon Hill. I'll tell you the ridiculous one first. He says that sometimes, even when you lose, you actually win. Kind of like playing a game of musical electric chairs. It's a game you don't want to win, right? But the idea is true. A lot of times we're playing games that we think we want to win, but when we realize what's going on, we realize, well, maybe this is a game that we shouldn't even be playing. Maybe this is a game that I don't really want to be winning. Now, the other quote that I mentioned is from Napoleon Hill, and he said that sometimes the worst thing that could happen to you could be the best thing for you, so long as you don't let it get the best of you. The worst thing could be the best thing, so long as you don't let it get the best of you. Now, this positive mental attitude approach is so easy to say. It's easy to say it when times are good and you're happy and things are great and you're here at Girls State and things are wonderful. It's completely, entirely different to say this when you're in the thick of life and things aren't going your way. But I promise you, if you work at this every day, when times are good and when times are bad, amazing things are going to happen. I had an experience a number of years ago. This was the summer of 2007. And I was hired to work at a restaurant as their magician. That's a thing, restaurants hire magicians. My job was to go table to table, performing like card tricks and tricks with various items to distract the customers from the fact that their meal was still in the kitchen and hadn't come out yet. That was my real job, not to entertain, was to distract. Just like politics, right? So this one night in the summer of 2007, I was performing in the dining room when all of a sudden there was this commotion on the other side of the room. And I turned around and there was this a bunch of people standing around this elderly couple. And it became apparent that the woman was choking on her food. Now, I'm a horrible judge of age. I really am. If I didn't have a license, I would barely know how old I am. I'm just a horrible judge of age. But if I had to guess, this woman was probably, give or take a few years, about 120, 130. She was really old. And she was choking. I mean, this is terrible whether you're a baby or a teenager or an adult. She was choking. And she was able to cough it up, and she was fine. Right? She was able to breathe. It didn't last that long, so she was fine. But she was visibly distraught by this, more distraught than probably someone should be if they just choked for a couple seconds and then they were fine. Knowing my job is as the distractor, being the magician, my job is to distract. I decided to go and distract this elderly woman from the negative situation that had just happened. I didn't perform any magic tricks for her, but what I did do was I listened to her story. And sometimes that's the best magic trick that any one of us can do, is just to honestly listen to someone and hear their story. This is what she said. She said that just a couple weeks before this happened, sitting in the same restaurant, sitting at the same table, she also choked on her food. And I stopped her right there and I said, you might want to eat at a different table. She didn't think it was funny. Admittedly, it was rude to stop someone from telling their story. So she ignored my interruption and continued. I thought it was funny, though. She said that on this day, it was worse. She really couldn't cough up her food. She could not breathe. And it got so bad that at one point, someone in the bar had to come over and just pound on this frail 120-something-year-old woman, just pounding and pounding at her. And her husband said that at one point her skin, her face began to turn gray. And possibly before it would have been too late. Finally, it was dislodged and she could finally breathe. And of course, the owners of the restaurant were freaking out at this point, thinking that a customer is going to die. This is horrible for business. They, of course, called an ambulance. And even though she could breathe fine, the ambulance, when they arrived, they still brought her to the hospital, thinking maybe the Good Samaritan had broken some of her ribs, pounding on her, trying to get her to breathe again. When they got her to the hospital, they didn't find any broken ribs. But what they did find was the reason I'm telling you this story. What they found was an aneurysm that was about to burst. This was someone's mother, someone's great-grandmother, someone's great-great-grandmother. She had lived her entire life, And had this horrible experience not happened, she surely would have died soon. And yet there could be someone no more than 26 years old, and it's just, for some reason, their time to go. It's all about perspective. It's often said that there's nothing good about tragedy, that it's better to be at peace than at chaos, and better to be happy than sad. But just as choking on a piece of food can have this greater meaning, I would suggest that tragedy and sadness and God bless you, all of these things have a greater purpose and a greater meaning, so long as we're able to take a step back and look at things from a different perspective. So before I get to the last story, I have a question for you. What are you choking on? And how might you benefit from it? My last story is my favorite story, because we've talked about purpose, we've talked about perspective, but without this last P, none of the other P's are going to matter, and it's perseverance. I used to use the word persistence here, but I changed the word to perseverance because persistence can be good if you're doing the right things, but perseverance is good if maybe you're doing the wrong things. And doing the wrong things over and over and over aren't going to help you either. So perseverance has this natural curiosity, and you change as you go, and you try again, and you evolve. So perseverance is very important. And this is a happy story, but I'll remind you, not all happy stories have happy beginnings. This is a story about my best friend in high school. You all have best friends, right? Right? Or you at least have a friend, right? We all have friends. You all have girls' state friends, right? Right? That's right. I love the passion in this room, by the way. So my best friend in high school, I met Stephanie when I was 16 years old. And Stephanie was the type of person that she would just introduce herself to anyone and everyone in school, right? So she would just insert herself into any group, whether you wanted it to happen or not. And she was going to become your friend or someone you tried to ignore, but she was going to be there anyway. She was hilarious in school. She was funny, smart, beautiful. Of course, I was in love with her. Because how could I not? She's Stephanie, and I was 16 years old, never felt that way before, so of course it had to be love, right? Right? So this was a big deal that I decided one day to tell Stephanie how I felt. And I told Stephanie, I said, hey, I'm in love with you. Oh, thank you. See, it's a happy story. Little 16-year-old me had the guts to say that, right? And this was a big deal because I don't think I had ever talked to a girl before this. So this was huge. This was huge. But you know what she said to me? She said, Jonas, because that's my name. She said, Jonas, we're just friends. But remember, I said, this is a happy story. Just doesn't always have a happy beginning. We just have to persevere, right? So I told Stephanie, I said, that's fine, as long as you're around, as long as we're friends, that's all I need. So I remember it was maybe a little while after that, I invited Stephanie to go with me to the winter semi-formal. And she said yes. You feel me. You feel my excitement. And again, this was a big deal because I had never invited anyone to anything before. So the big night came, and we were dressed to the nines. We were in the cafeteria. And at one point, it was early on in the night, we sat down in the cafeteria, and we were just sitting there resting. And all of a sudden, the first slow song of the night came on. And I wanted to dance with Stephanie, but I thought to myself, wait a minute now. Who am I to ask Stephanie to dance? Yeah, she's my date, so that's who I am. But I still hesitated, and so there I was trying to get the nerve to ask her to dance, and there she was just sitting, waiting for me to ask, when all of a sudden this other guy came up. Fight him, you said. Little 16-year-old me wasn't fighting anyone. 35-year-old me isn't fighting anyone. But he asked her to dance. And I thought, who the heck does this guy think he is? I'll tell you who it was. It was Chris Ross. I remember his name to this day. Freaking Chris Ross. And she said yes. So they go off dancing, and I'm just sitting on the sidelines just thinking, why couldn't I just spit it out? Why couldn't I just say what I needed to say? Say what you need to say. That was my theme song, even though it hadn't come out yet. I'm pretty sure he wrote it about me. So there I was just watching everyone living their lives, dancing and having fun. And I remember when the song ended, she came up to me and she told me the words that to this day resonate with me. And I remember it informs so much of what I do now. She said to me, she said, Jonas. She looked me right in the eyes, very stern. She said, Jonas, if you want to dance with me, all you have to do is ask. See, it's a happy story. Life lessons that I'm learning at 16. So there we were, just friends, going to dances and not dancing together. And fast forward 8 years. I'm very persistent. And one day, and here's the key thing. I have to stress this. You know, even though she had turned me down early on, but she was always very clear. Yeah, we're friends. So that's awesome. That doesn't mean we just stop what we're doing and just give up on things. No, you know what we do? We just become the very best that we can be, right? We focus on us. I focused on myself. I decided, okay, I'm going to focus on my career. So I became a magician. That person I was pretending to be. As a kid, I became a full-time performing magician, performing at birthdays, weddings, and bar mitzvahs. Yeah. So that was my path. I was so focused going to networking events, getting my business card into decision makers' hands. I was honing my craft, going to conventions, practicing everything. So I was really focused on me. But then in the middle of this, at the height of my career, I was like, I don't know, I think I was 23, 24 at the time. The height of my career, Stephanie came to me and she said, you know, Jonas, I'm in love with you too. You see, it's a happy story. It's a happy story. They just don't have happy beginnings, right? That was really the best magic trick that had ever happened because, you know, she was always so clear, you know, about what the reality of the situation is. But then things can change all of a sudden. The reality of the situation can change so long as you don't let it get the best of you. Amazing things can happen. So we very quickly became a couple. And then 2 days later, we got engaged to be married. And then a few days later, we went on our first date as a couple. We did things a little backwards. But we waited 8 years, so we were in a rush, right? So that weekend, it was Labor Day weekend, 2007. And we just celebrated the whole weekend. Went up to Lake Winnipesaukee, you know, and went. It's beautiful up there, Laconia, right? Went on the go-karts. Think about this: 26 years old, never been on go-karts. We went to the drive-in movie. She'd never been to a drive-in movie. It was just a weekend of just celebrating life, living life, enjoying each other's company and our love. And then, oh my goodness! Oh, also, we danced a lot. Because I kept reminding her of that story of when we were in high school. I said, hey, remember you said all I have to do is ask? So I kept asking. We would just dance, even if there wasn't music playing. We would just dance. It was really the most amazing weekend. I know, isn't this a happy story? It was the time of our lives. And then just 2 days after we got back from this incredible weekend, very quietly, in her sleep, Stephanie died. She She was 26 years old, and there was no sign of her aneurysm. Now, at the time, I thought that I was going to die too, to die of a broken heart. And when I didn't die, I became so angry that I turned to alcohol to do it for me. Now, up to that point, you know me, 6-year-old me, 24 or 48-year-old me, I never had a drop of alcohol in my life. I was a good little boy, right? But all of a sudden, I just didn't care about life anymore. And I was so angry that I was still alive and that I wasn't dying of a broken heart. My heart hurt so much. Why was I still alive? How could this be possible? So I tried to just do it. I remember waking up one morning, it was about a couple years later, and I was still half drunk the night before. And I remember rolling out of bed, and I found on my desk a perfectly typed out, imprinted suicide note. And I had no memory of doing this. I thought to myself that if I could do something like this and not even be aware that I'm doing this, what else? What had my life become? When I was sitting where you are now, 16-year-old me, I had no idea that I would experience something so soon in life, or at all in life. It's just something you don't think about, you don't plan for, you don't expect. I remember looking in the mirror that day, and I really didn't recognize this person I had become. I sincerely didn't want to live the life that I was living anymore. But I also knew that I couldn't go back to being who I once was. So what I eventually came to understand was that even though I couldn't change what had happened, even though I couldn't just leave the room, what I could change was my perspective. What I could change was how I saw and dealt with this situation. And unfortunately, at the time, I didn't have the tools and the resources and the awareness of all the things that I have now that I've had to grow and research and learn along the way, which I joyfully share with people now. But what I eventually truly came to understand during that time of tragedy and time of growth and time of grief and trials and errors and trying to get stood up and falling down more times than I wanted, what I came to understand was that the person that I was yesterday doesn't have to be the person that I am today. And the person that you are today doesn't have to be the person that you are tomorrow. Especially if the game you've been playing is a game of musical electric chairs. There's been a lot of studies done about grief and about depression and about substance abuse. And if we believe any of the research, even if there's a sliver of truth to the research that's out there, according to the studies, roughly in the average high school, 2 students are going to attempt suicide this year. And the sad part is, it's often not what we think it is. It might be a tragic event that's going to happen, but sometimes there's no warning signs for it, because all it is, it's just this chemical imbalance that can be brought about by a tragic event that shakes you out of you. It could, of course, happen from you willingly putting substances in your body. That's going to alter your chemistry, and that could affect things. And the good news is that not everyone is going to experience this. This is the good news. So if you're doing great, that's wonderful. But what about your friends? And even if you're doing great now, what's going to happen if down the road things change? There has to be ways to change this. So I'm going to share with you one quick sentence. It's sentenced in 3 parts. And this is great to use for yourself, but it's also great to share with others in your life, because oftentimes the first line of defense isn't parents, it's not teachers or coaches, it's friends, right? We are our own support system. If we believe further studies, it says that the happiest people in life are the people who have a support system of friends and loved ones and people that they can truly rely on. Happiness is all about resilience. And all these studies show that that happens with a support system. So if someone in your group, it might even be you might have to do your own self-talk. This is a simple sentence, and it goes, "You haven't seen yourself lately. I'm worried about you. Maybe it might be a good idea to talk to someone." And using your own version of this, some version of this my own friends used during that time. Unfortunately, again, I didn't have a lot of the same resources that I have now, and we have so many resources available now. It's very key that people know that they're not a burden. That's what this one line does. It does three things. One, it lets your friends know that they're not alone. It lets them know that they're not a burden. And this is a huge one because so many people don't speak up about this sort of stuff because they think they're going to be a burden on their loved ones. So it lets them know that you care, lets them know that they're not a burden. And number three, it builds this bridge of support from a moment of crisis to the moments afterwards. And that's really all that we need to do. We bring someone to the next moment because we don't have to know every step along the way. It's just the next step. And the next step after that will be revealed. So I have just a few questions for you to consider. Think of this as your summer assignment, but also think of it as your lifelong assignment. We talked about purpose, perspective, and perseverance. What's your purpose? What's your mission statement? What are you working towards? In 10 years from now, where are you going to be? Think about that answer. Number two, how will you view your life circumstances from a new perspective? The lemons in life. When life gives us lemons, truly the happiest people, according to scientists, again, whatever they know, the happiest people are the people that face those sour situations and learn to overcome them. We can't have sweet things without sour things. And let me see if I brought it with me. When we don't run away from what's troubling us, when we don't run away from the difficult things in life, the things that make us want to just give up, when we face them head on, it's there at the very core that we're going to find something perhaps we didn't even know we were looking for, or perhaps that we forgot we were looking for. Now, in this case, it's a rolled up playing card. Victoria, what was your card? You wrote it down. Oh, Evelyn! No, the role of Evelyn will be played by Victoria. A two of hearts. Are you sure it wasn't the two of clubs? Oh, thank heavens, this is the two of hearts. Evelyn, Victoria, this is for you. Thank you so much. It has truly been a joy to come and speak with all of you. I want to thank you all for having me today. And before I go,